Thanks for tuning in to more NFL Draft Talk on the Our Football Network. Inside Our NFL depth charts, we talk Detroit Lions football. That means Detroit Lions analyst Jeff Risdon is with us from at the Lions Wire with USA Today Sports at usatoday.com. Jeff, nice to talk to you again.
Great to be back with you. It's almost draft time, and we
Yeah.
got so much ready to go. I can't wait. I cannot wait for this draft to get going and get over with.
Yeah, that's true too. But as far as Jet fans and Detroit fans, this is the time of year to celebrate because we didn't have a whole lot of time to celebrate in the winter.
We celebrated losing our coach, which was a very joyous occasion in Detroit, as it was in New York. I would suspect.
Yes.
For much the same reasons. So we're on fresh starts, and I think that's a very exciting time for both franchises.
Yes, and we did a show a few weeks back, and now we will have an opportunity to kind of zero in more on the specifics of the first pick. So anybody that missed that show, that's available. We have that on the archives on the YouTube channel here. You could check that out. But again, I just want to have you on. We'll have you on again, of course, after the draft, and we'll have an opportunity to recap everything that happened during the offseason with free agency and the draft and so forth. But this is basically about the first pick and then a little bit of house cleaning for some of the things that happened since the last time we spoke. But before I do that, the Our Lads draft guide just came in the mail a couple of days ago. So it is available. And I know you're going to have Dan Shonka on your podcast soon. Is that correct?
Absolutely. We're working out a date. I got to get with my co-host on find a time, but it will be very soon. We cannot wait. We're very excited to have Dan on. I love Dan.
Should be fun. And so hopefully I did Lions fans justice because the Lions were one of my teams that I was responsible for in the guide. And we'll get into that a little bit. But what I'm going to do is I am going to give away a draft guide. Okay, now there's a couple of things you have to do, and I'm not asking much, okay? So all you have to do, Lions fans, is subscribe, obviously. That's easy. You know, why wouldn't you want to subscribe? Jeff's on the program several times a year, so that's enough should be reason for you to subscribe.
There you go.
Comment and like the video of your choice, and I would think it would be the Detroit Lions podcast with Jeff Risdon, and that's it. And you're going to be one of how many that, you put yourself in that little raffle, you say. And I will say this, if there's 7 or 8 people that decide to do this, then I'm still giving away one of the draft guides. If there's a couple of hundred, I might think of giving a couple out. So just keep that in mind, because I know we get some pretty good traffic whenever you're on, Jeff, because you have a great audience over there on your YouTube channel.
They're awesome, and you want this guide. I have one. I haven't gotten the guide in the mail yet, but I do have the PDF version, and it's as always, as it is every year, it is chock full of information and a different perspective that you might not get from other places that you will want to see.
And one of those positions is at quarterback. So I actually noticed it myself. I don't know anything about the rankings or anything until I get it myself. So I don't talk to Dan off the air and, hey, Dan, what are you going to do? I don't know anything. So as soon as it comes through, I see it. What's interesting is he had Baker Mayfield as his top rated quarterback when Baker Mayfield came out. And that was something that was kind of really Baker Mayfield. Nobody expected Baker Mayfield to go to the Cleveland Browns with the first pick. He ended up going to the Cleveland Browns as the top quarterback selected. So there's a little of that in here. But anyway, check it out for sure. You order it at ourlads.com. Now, in here, I said but the number one need for Detroit would be defensive back, Jeff. And since we spoke, they did go out and make a couple of nice deals, bringing in Dunbar and Elder, especially Elder, who had a really breakout year last year as a slot guy for Carolina. But that doesn't prevent Detroit from still going out. And if they stay at 7, they could still very well end up being the team that selects the first cornerback in the draft.
They could. It's not as huge of a need. Remember, they did take Jeff Okudah number 3 overall last year. Started a star-crossed year for him. The scheme did him no favors. His own jumpiness did him no favors either. About the only thing he did really well was tackle. He was a phenomenal tackler. But he needs to bounce back well. if they can play, if they could take a guy like Patrick Surtain, he's got the potential to play as sort of the hybrid corner safety, and that would be the position they need. Their biggest need in the secondary is definitely safety. With right now their safety depth chart, they signed Dean Marlowe last week. Dean Marlowe is a perfectly fine, good special teams guy, perfectly fine third or fourth guy. Bills fans probably saw the best in him last year. He might be the number one cornerback or number one safety on the roster right now, depending on how Tracy Walker bounces back. Tracy Walker, a guy I'm personally a big fan. I do believe that he will bounce back strong. This was one of the more up and coming safeties in the league in 2018 and 2019. He had a wretched season last year, and I will say that as one of his biggest fans and supporters. He was awful. We're hoping that it was more scheme related and more Matt Patricia related than it was Tracy Walker related. But after that, they've got Will Harris, who has just been an absolute bust of a third-round pick a couple years ago.
Are you surprised he wasn't cut?
A little bit, yeah. I think it's one of those deals where they're waiting to see what else they get, just because they have nothing behind him.
Okay.
They have a couple of undrafted free agents from last year, and special teamer C.J. Moore, who's again a solid special teams player, but not necessarily a guy that you want playing on your defense. That's their safety room right now. So that's still a massive, massive need. But you're not taking a safety at 7, certainly not in this class.
No.
So that's day 2, hopefully. Fingers crossed there.
And that's a good point, because bottom line is even though I mentioned cornerback, the fact is it's really the defensive backfield.
Absolutely,
in total, but you're not going to take a guy like you mentioned that early. I will say the one guy that is rated the number 1 free safety for, and these guys are interchangeable for the most part for our lads, is the kid from TCU.
Trevon Moehrig.
And I'm a big fan. And but again, he's not going to go that high. So, and how many picks do the Lions have right now in total?
So they only have 6. They do not have a 6th or a 7th round pick. They have Los Angeles Rams 3rd round pick in the Jared Goff, Matt Stafford trade.
But they still could use, especially with the new regime. It wouldn't also be a surprise if a team wanted to go up, grab one of those quarterbacks. Detroit gets to move back, get another important early pick. And then all of a sudden, these types of players that we're talking about, especially at safety, come back into play.
Definitely. If New England wants to come up from 15, if Chicago wants to come up from 20, Washington wants to come up from 19, new GM Brad Holmes will certainly answer the phone. I don't know if they'll work a deal out, but he'll definitely listen.
All right. So also, I had wide receiver as the number 2 need, or one of the top needs. Now, they haven't added anybody since we last spoke, but in total, it's basically Perryman and Williams for Jones and Golladay. By the way, any chance in Amendola coming back?
It's doubtful. He's been very quiet. He did this last year as well. He didn't sign until much later after the draft.
Okay.
He kind of wanted to see his options. He liked the Darrell Bevell offense. Keep in mind, Darrell Bevell is now the quarterback or the offensive coordinator in Jacksonville, where Marvin Jones did sign. And there's some school of thought in Detroit that he's going to wind up there, rejoining that group. Which would certainly make some sense, and I think he would be very good with Trevor Lawrence as the number 1 pick there. I don't see a 34-year-old Danny Amendola coming back to Detroit. Okay. He would absolutely vault to the top of the depth chart at wide receiver. I mean, Tyrell Williams, Rashad Perriman, these are guys that you hope have capable seasons in roles that are probably 1 or 2 spots down on the depth chart from where they're at right now. And then Quintez Cephas comes back. Was a big slot, 6th round pick a year ago out of Wisconsin. He's not without some value. Played fairly well when given a shot, but he is he's a slow guy. He's a slow twitch guy. Good, looks like a good possession receiver, big slot, and honestly that's where they're at now. That's their depth chart. They did add Khalif Raymond out of Tennessee as a speed slot option and a return potential. He sort of takes over that role that Jamal Agnew didn't do very well in Detroit the last couple of years. So they are absolutely desperate. This is barely an expansion team at wide receiver right now.
And Allison opted out, so he's back, correct?
Yes. Okay. Assuming he's back and healthy. We have not. Yeah. We haven't heard anything about him trying to come back at all. I remember his last season got ended with a nasty injury, and he's not given any updates on that. So
Okay.
we're all sort of wondering what's going on with Geronimo Allison, if we'll see him or not.
Okay. If Chase is off the board,
Yeah.
is he the only receiver, including tight end? Is he the only receiver that you would believe Detroit would have considered? And therefore, if he's off the board, there's no way Detroit is spending that pick at 7 if they have it on a receiver.
I still think that Jalen Waddle is in play.
Okay.
Certainly not as much as Chase, but I do think that Waddle, the way that he started last season, if you go back and watch Alabama's first 4 games, he had better numbers than Devontae Smith through those 4 games when the two of them were playing together. Now, he got hurt, he broke his ankle, and then Smith went on to just absolutely capitalize and dominate college football and won the Heisman Trophy and deserved it. Was phenomenal. But Waddle has that speed, and that's a dynamic changing speed. If you play single high safety against Jalen Waddle, you can't do it. He fundamentally alters the way that defenses have to play your offense. He's phenomenal after the catch. He can run on a simple drag route or a cross or a bubble screen or something like that and create after it. That's the type of dynamic playmaker that the Lions sorely lack. They didn't really even have it when they had a good receiving core. Kenny Golladay, Marvin Jones, very good receiving core. Don't get me wrong, but they weren't that kind of guy. This is going back to a sort of a supercharged Golden Tate who worked wonders in Detroit. Detroit still misses him. We still love you, Golden, but we miss you. You've never been replaced. This would be an alpha dog Golden replacing him. He is not in New York anymore. I don't even know where he wound up.
Yeah, I don't think I heard it signed anywhere.
I don't either. Not off the top of my head, anyways.
Yeah. Okay. So, and it's interesting because Waddle, and I know you shouldn't do this to every player, but I do believe that when certain players come out of certain programs, it's sort of like we were having this conversation with Ryan Dunleavy the other day about the Bulldogs, the Georgia Bulldogs, and how for whatever reason, for the last few years, Kirby Smart and some of these top recruits, they've come with some baggage. There have been some baggage issues with some of these top guys, and they haven't exactly worked out. Now, it's a completely different scenario that I'm about to make you with Alabama, but we saw what happened, and it's only 1 year, but we saw what happened to Ruggs last year in Las Vegas. Right. And same type of situation. Speed guy. Here's a speed guy. He didn't have all the stats that the other guy had, but he has speed. And, we saw Ross in Cincinnati. He had all the speed in the world. So that's the thing that just, it's like, I get it.
Yeah, I hear you. Yeah, I do. I get exactly where you're at. I do think that Waddle offers a little bit more wiggle than those guys do. Specifically, Ruggs, he was much more of a straight line guy. Ross was similar size, and I think that's a fair comparison for Waddle. Waddle is at least, even though he missed half of last season with a broken ankle, has shown himself to be more durable and also a little bit more tough with the ball in his hands and tougher going to get the ball than Ross ever was when he was at Washington. That it obviously hasn't worked out for Ross, but I do think that Waddle is a little bit safer, but there's certainly some risk in taking a 5'10", 180-pound speed guy at the number 7 overall pick. I understand any Lions fan who would have trepidation about that because I see it too.
Yeah, and that's the thing. It's not, and look, I don't think it's because maybe he's not warranted necessarily based on his numbers and stuff and what he could do to exploit defenses and what he could do for your offense. But is it where a team that's rebuilding like Detroit, is that where they should go? Should they take that type of chance on that type of player? That's where and I'll tell you right now, I'm not so sure Chase lasts till 7. If he does, it would be just way too tempting for the Lions not to go there. But even a guy like Chase, in my mind, when you're rebuilding, I say to myself, do you really go after a receiver when you have so many other problems on your team? Does wide receiver become, unless he's always going to be guaranteed He's going to
Yeah.
be the best receiver. He's going to be Jefferson, times 10. All right, okay,
Yeah.
but we can never predict these things. So I'm not saying that it would be a negative, obviously, if Chase became the pick for the Detroit Lions. It's just that, and when you're rebuilding a team, I just think wide receivers shouldn't be at the top of the list.
I don't disagree with that. I will say this though. They seem intent on making Jared Goff work, or at least giving him a fair shot to work.
Okay.
If your wide receiving core is Brashad Perriman and
Yeah.
Tyrell Williams, you're not giving your
No, you're
quarterback a
not.
fair chance. So wide receiver is very tempting there, but this is a deep wide receiver class. And if you don't get one of the receivers in the first round, you can look at a guy like Rashad Bateman or Kadarius Toney or Elijah Moore or Rondale Moore or Diami Brown,
Absolutely.
any number of players later on that will give you significant bang for your buck. It might not be the top end, the top level guy,
Yeah.
but you're getting a quality starter who can be with your team when they figure out if Goff is the guy, or if they go in another direction in 2022 and beyond and get a quarterback. Then you've got your wide receiver in your system already, who you can grow with your young quarterback. And I go back and forth on it, honestly. I am. We've been blessed to have fantastic receivers in Detroit since 2007 when Calvin Johnson came on board. Having Marvin Jones, Kenny Golladay, Golden Tate over the last few years, Danny Amendola, it's been great. And it's going to be stark watching an offense that doesn't have anything close to that, no matter who the quarterback is.
Yeah.
So the sidebar to that is, they do in Kerryon Johnson and DeAndre Swift, they have two incredibly talented receivers out of the backfield at running back.
Good point.
They do seem like they're set on running the ball more. And TJ Hawkinson is a legit dude at tight end.
And that's a big part. Yes.
He took a big step in year 2, the number 8 overall pick from 2019.
Yep.
He played really, really well. He's ready to be in that next echelon. He's not quite a Kelsey. He's not quite George Kittle, but he is absolutely in that next tier, and could blossom even higher than that if things break right for him.
And Jamal Williams also.
Jamal Williams
also a
very good receiver.
Yes.
Absolutely. Yeah. So the running back is very good, and the receiving aspect of the running back position is very good as well. So that you could, again, if you're trying to do trade-offs, you could probably get by running more 2 running back sets, more 2 tight end sets, and mitigate what you need at wide receiver for a year, if you want to do that.
What has your research told you about how Anthony Lynn wants to run his offense, and how you think, like, do you think you're going to see more 3 receivers, 2 tight ends, 2 running backs, that kind of deal?
I think he likes to have the idea of a mobile guy, a guy who can dictate things. Hawkinson could be that guy if they have another inline tight end. They did sign Josh Hill, who can be that guy for a year. He's certainly an upgrade over Jesse James as the number 2 tight end in Detroit. That was one of many myriad bad free agency signings by the prior regime.
Yeah.
Oh yeah. So I do like the idea. Kerryon Johnson is versatile enough. He can play in a 2-back set as the second back. He's not a lead blocking fullback, but he is the best pass blocking running back in the NFL. His last coach called him that, and his new coach called him that. Wow, so that's pretty stark endorsement. If he's your number 3 running back, I think you've got a pretty darn good running back core, and you can get 2 guys on the field. Lynn has not been shy about rotating guys in and out. He did that in with the Chargers with Eckler and Gordon when he had him there. I think you're going to see a healthy dose of that. I do think they're going to run the ball probably more than they have in the past. Even last year, where they did uptick the run game because DeAndre Swift clicked as a rookie. He was a good pick, good second-round pick last year, good hit. The future is bright there, and they have the base skeleton of a pretty darn good offensive line too. With Frank Ragnow at center, he's going to be in Pro Bowls sooner than later.
Yeah,
Taylor Decker.
People don't know. People outside of Detroit, I don't think they get that. I don't think they understand that the Lions' offensive line, with all the problems they have on the team, that's really not one of them.
No, Taylor Decker's very good at left tackle. Jonah Jackson was good at left guard last year as a 3rd-round rookie. He outplayed his draft status. He's a good starter. Right side, Tyrell Crosby, probably better as your swing tackle, but he's okay as a starter. He's not a problem. Right guard, they tried a bunch of bodies last year. The hope is that Halapoulivaati Vaitai will fill that hole. He's getting paid $9 million this year. They're hopeful that he can play one of those positions. He
Yeah.
couldn't do either of them last year. He was hurt. That has to get factored in. The hope is that he's healthy and a better scheme fit and a better personality fit with Dan Campbell as the head coach.
Okay.
Hopefully they drive a little bit more of a kneecap biter in him than he was under Matt Patricia. If that's your starting five, that's a top 10 offensive line right there.
If Chase is gone and Surtain is gone,
Yeah.
which I don't think is going to happen, but let's just say they're both gone.
Yeah.
Do you think that if Sewell was still available, that they would go in that direction just by basically saying best player available on the board? We can't trade out. We're not getting a good enough deal. He's going to be an upgrade. There's no question about it. It's not our need, but the other guys are gone. We're going to go in this direction.
Yeah, and you're in a position where you need impact talent. Period. You're starting over with a new team, a new coach, new GM. Sewell would certainly fit. I happen to like Rashawn Slater better. I don't get the impression that they do. Absolutely, offensive line makes sense there because you can have bookend tackles with Decker, who's signed on a contract through 2025. You get Sewell in there, and you're good to go. Crosby can be your backup. He can play right guard if you want him to. Hopefully that the new regime will let him try that more than the old one did. He wound up. He was going to be the starting right guard 2 years ago, and for whatever reason, the coaches decided they wanted to keep him at tackle. Now, it did, in fact, work out last year, but I'd love to see them have that flexibility and not be so pigeonholed into keeping him at tackle, where they will try things there. So, yes, I do absolutely think that the Penei Sewell is very much in play at number 7, no matter who else is on the board. He would be – he's probably not the top choice, but he is probably the most likely choice of any player to be taken at number 7 at this point.
Because when I'm thinking, okay, if there's Chase, if there's Surtain, if there's Sewell, and if there's Pitts, and one or two of those guys are available. Let's say one of them's even Pitts. See, Pitts, I know how good he is, but this is even more my point as far as what I was making at wide receiver. Yes, it would be a great thing to have Pitts and Hawkinson. It'd be great. But do you really need to have that when you're trying to rebuild? I don't know. Maybe it's one of those things where, hey, he's just so much better than anybody else on the board. We'll figure it out. And he'll be our and then you know what? If we have to, we'll spend our second-round pick on either Elijah Moore or Rondell Moore, one of those 4-3-5 guys we can pick up in the second round. And now all of a sudden, we've got a 4-3-5 guy. We've got these 2 tight ends. We've got these running backs that can catch. That ain't all that bad. So I don't see that happening, but it's definitely another possibility.
It is. And keep in mind, this is a new regime. This is their first pick. You're always identified as a regime by your first pick, whether you get it right or whether you get it wrong. The last regime in town made Taylor Decker their first-round pick, and that bought them a lot of goodwill because he's been really good. He's one of the top 10 best starting left tackles in the league and has been from day one. So taking another tight end, remember, this is a team that took a tight end in 2009 in the first round of Brandon Pettigrew, who had one really good season, and the rest of his life he was known as Petidrop in Detroit and still is derisively. Then they took Eric Ebron, which is that's still a curse word in Detroit. You just don't talk about that. And then they took T.J. Hawkins. They've taken 3 first-round tight ends in 12 years. Taking a 4th, that's a really tough sell to this fan base. And by the way, to those of us who cover the team, it's a tough sell to have us try to sell that to the fan base too.
I get it. I'm right there with you. So let me ask you then. Let's say all 4 of those guys for somehow would all be available. The ones I just mentioned.
Oh man.
What's the order?
I think it would probably be Chase, Sewell, and I do think that Pitts, because of his versatility, because he can play as your X wideout if you need him to, would be there. I can't see them taking Surtain at defensive back. I think Waddle would bump up over that. Really? That's nothing against Surtain. I have Surtain he's my top defensive player on the board, regardless of position. It would make me happy, but again, you took a cornerback number 3 overall last year. Didn't necessarily work out as well as you hoped right away. Obviously, the book is far from written on Jeff Okudah yet, but then a lot of fans in Detroit would interpret that and not be wrong about it. By the way, that, oh my God, are we worried about Okudah now? Do we completely waste that pick? Are we giving up on him already? And I think this front office is sensitive to the optics of doing things like that. I hope they are, and by all the feedback that I've gotten from people that are around them, they're not going to do things just to appease the fan base, but if they can make a move and it does appease the fan base, that's going to be a little bit better.
Okay.
It might help favor that. So I do think that's probably the course of action there would be, and again, this is just my guess, is that they would value Chase a little bit higher, because I do think that his talent ceiling at a position where they have a desperate need is really, really high. He's just, you go back to that 2019 season, what he did was a transcendent talent. It's a Julio Jones-like talent. It's a Larry Fitzgerald-like performance. Those guys don't come along every year.
That's why I don't think he's going to be there at 7. I have a hard time.
I agree. I have a hard. So I think Cincinnati takes either him or Sewell, and I think the Lions will take the other player that isn't taken of those two.
And I know there's been talk about Cincinnati potentially going with Pitts as well. So either way,
Pitts is tough. My personal belief is that the Miami Dolphins traded up back from 12 to 6 specifically to take Kyle Pitts if he's there.
Yeah,
that's my belief.
That's the guy actually that did the show with Alan Pupar, who covers the Dolphins, about a week or so ago, and our pick, we both agreed, would be Pitts.
Okay.
So yeah.
Again,
it's not even a need for the Dolphins, because they have a good tight end room.
Mike Gesicki, one of the greatest volleyball players ever to play football.
He had a breakout year. So
he's a good player.
Yeah, and they have some other good guys in that room as well. But you put another guy like that on the team, and it just it really makes things. Okay, so lastly, later on, could you see them going fullback with Ben Mason?
That's a tough sell. They do have Nick Bawden still around. Jason Kabinda converted from linebacker and was pretty good. So maybe as a late round flyer, but again, they don't have the late round picks. They don't have a 6th or a 7th. So maybe if they acquire something like that,
5th. He is 5th, 6th round guy. That's where he's supposed to go.
I think that's a tough sell with the needs that they have. They need an off-ball linebacker who can cover. They need ideally 2 safeties. They certainly need a slot receiver. They could use a developmental interior offensive lineman, a guy like the gentleman out of Grambling, whose name escapes me right at the moment. He would be a good fit as a guy who can take over in a year or two at right guard, or be the swing interior offensive lineman. They don't really have that guy on the roster right now. So, depending on what they do, last year's 4th round pick, Logan Stenberg, I'm not sure he's still on the team on May 1st.
Okay.
He could not get on the field. They had massive injury attrition issues throughout the year last year, and he still couldn't get active on game days. The reports out of so they tried to convert him to be the backup center behind Ragnow, and when Ragnow was hurt, he still couldn't even get on the field as the number 2 center. So that sort of tells you where he's at. So that looks like a miss.
Okay.
So I think they have more pressing needs than they would at fullback. They will play fullbacks in Anthony Lynn's offense. Yeah. They absolutely will. Yes.
And then of course you mentioned linebacker, definitely. Middle to late, and then finally nose tackle. Right. You could see a nose tackles do go later.
So they do, and they got one last year in John Pennicini. He's good. They could certainly use another one. They have a guy like Nick Williams as a 3 technique. He's only signed for 1 more year. They have some depth on the inside, but they don't really have a true backup nose. So and you need 2 of them, as you know. You can't just have one, because then if he leaves the game, then you got to change things around. It just doesn't work that way.
Yeah.
So yeah, they could absolutely take a space eater on the inside, and if he can get up the field a little bit, even better.
And you do like the fact that they have some decent talent at edge rusher,
They do.
It's good.
They're not dynamic, but Trey Flowers, Romeo Okwara, those are really really good football players. They don't get a lot of acclaim. They're not guys that you look at and think, oh, this guy's going to get 12 sacks for me. Okwara got 10 and a half last year, almost completely on his own volition. He got no help from the scheme, no help from the other side. Julian Okwara is healthy this year. We're hopeful that he can play off of his brother's outside shoulder and be the sort of flamethrower pass rusher that they desperately need. That's a huge need too. At 7, again, you're not really in position to get one of those guys, but if you can find one in the second round, I'm not a Greg Rousseau fan, but if he's there, or somebody if like Azeez Ojulari falls, which I doubt happens, or somebody like that, Joe Tryon out of Washington makes sense with their second round pick as well. It wouldn't hurt to have a guy there either.
And again, this comes up if they trade down. If they come out of 7, they move down, they get something middle, late, or even earlier in the second as an additional pick, then these types of options come into play. So.
Definitely. And I do think they will absolutely listen if the phone rings at number 7 from somebody wanting to come up, even if it's the Chicago Bears and even if it gets the Bears a quarterback, especially if the Bears really want to come up for Mac Jones, God bless them. And I actually like Mac Jones.
I don't know what San Francisco is going to do. I just don't. I mean, some people still believe it's Mac Jones. Some people think it's Lance. Some people think it's Fields.
I happen to believe that it's Fields, but I don't know that. And what Atlanta does, I think Atlanta might take Lance. I think they might take Pitts. Who knows what they're going to do. This is fun this year, Greg, because we're so much more in the dark than normal. And every person that I talk to feels the same way. Like there's a lot more, I'm pretty sure, rather than, I know this year. When you talk to everybody around the league with every team.
We only know the first 2 picks. That's it.
Yeah, that's it. And it kind of makes it more fun not knowing. I like it. I have known most years what the Lions were going to do before the draft got in. I don't know this year. I kind of like it. I'm enjoying the seat of the pants aspect of it.
Yeah, and it's good for business. It's good
Absolutely.
for traffic. Don't forget, again, as I said in the open, all you have to do is subscribe, like one of the videos, comment on a video, ask a question. Jeff will answer it for you. I'll tell Jeff, hey, I got some questions for you to answer, and we'll give one of these guides away. And again, if we get a lot of people that follow the direction of what it is going to take to grab one of these guides for nothing, I will mail out the guide personally. Then maybe we'll give away a second guide as well. And look, by the way, our draft review guide comes out in a couple of months too. So we're going to give some of those away. And you and I are going to talk again after the draft, Jeff. And
absolutely.
I'm looking forward to that, to kind of figure out what the game plan here is in Detroit when it's all said and done.
Yeah, we'll do some triage after the draft because, as you know, being a Jets guy, you might like the ideas that are going into the draft, but there's going to be 1 or 2 picks after the draft weekend when you look back, you're like, what just happened?
I hope not.
I hope not as well for both of our sakes.
All right, and have fun with Dan Shanka as well. I'm sure you're going to get him on sometime real soon.
Absolutely.
And enjoy the draft, Jeff, and we'll talk to you again after it.
All right, thank you.